Imagine you've built the perfect organization, right? There's no waste, the processes are on point, the right people are in the right seats, and it's just humming along nicely, very profitable, and everything is going well. And at some point of time, something might change in the outside world that makes it necessary to change the structure of the organization. And what you'll most likely encounter is that it's very difficult for organizations to change their structure, right? And because inertia takes over, and then it's very hard for them to actually adapt to the changes of the outside world, right? And so this is quite normal, and this is actually a problem that a lot of different areas have. And in software development, we've actually borrowed the concept from them. They call this refactoring, the need to change the inside of a program, work with a software code, and leave the outside intact for the customer to still consume, right? And this is the same thing that we want to do. And it tends to be very difficult for organizations to do that. And so there's a couple of things that you can take away from organizational refactoring. And the first one is that organizations are always too slow to do it, right? Yes, an organizational structure is supposed to be stable, but that doesn't mean we don't change it ever, right? We don't want to change it every 2 weeks, but we don't want to keep it the same for 20 years either, right? So we have to find a balance of, yes, structure is supposed to give us strength, right? Rigidity, structure. But at the same time, it needs to be malleable so we can adapt it to new circumstances, right? And so in tenants, organizations are always too slow to do it. And just think about, your environment, your work, your personal life, your government interactions. You can often see that things are not adapting quickly enough. The second one is that there's a real cost associated with this, right? And not adapting your organization, not changing it internally to address new business needs actually has tremendous costs associated with it. So for example, think about all the legacy products that are marginally profitable, right? That nobody really cares about anymore, that still soak up 20% of your engineering talent, right? How many organizations have that? Basically all of them, right? And so then they have these ideas for new products that could be world-changing, right? And they don't have the manpower for it and say, well, we don't have the budget for that, but yet still 20% are on products that don't turn a profit and that have no future and that actually need to be killed, right? But it's a difficult thing to do. And so these engineers are not being moved over. Think about being too late to market, right? You have this great idea and you cannot refactor your organization quickly enough so that you can actually capture that opportunity. Meanwhile, the competition has, and they have taken over the market. And as many markets are winner takes all nowadays with the internet and network effects, then you're being left out and suddenly you're missing out on a whole market, right? So organizations are almost always too slow with it, and there's a real cost associated with it. And my third insight on this topic is that if you don't have an operating system for the organization, you have an operating system for the computer and you also need one for your organization. If you don't have an operating system for that organization that allows you to refactor the org rather quickly, you're going to be in real trouble, right? Because you're always going to be behind. You're not going to be able to adapt the organization as quickly as is actually demanded by the quickly changing outside world. And so what I'd like to ask you is to keep this idea of organizational refactoring in your mind and just, watch in your everyday life, right? Maybe in your organization next week, have a look out for where is the organization actually too slow to refactor? Where could you free up forces? Where could you capture a market, for example? Where could you really move things if the organization were a little bit more nimble to change? If these kind of concepts are of interest to you, I teach regular seminars on them. I teach Scrum at Scale and business agility classes. So if this is something for you, head over to teamflow.de to find out more.